Chapter 15. Masochistic America. A recurring theme in LaVey's writings and musings for the past dozen years is that the only motivations for most humans are pain and fear. The more pain something gives them, the better they like it, says LaVey. Masochists have been on the rise over the past 40 years, especially since the 1960s. To explain why, LaVey links pain, overpopulation, carnival rides, jogging shoes, Christianity, and capitalism together, in ways that only he could, to show exactly what is happening to the American psyche. As with all LaVeyan worldviews, this one has a disturbingly Machiavellian ring to it. LaVey has described himself as a very happy man in a compulsively unhappy world. With the growth of our post-war consumer society, LaVey sees that Americans must be kept dissatisfied, uneducated, and insecure to maintain economic stability. We must be kept in a vulnerable position, easy prey for television commercials and politicians. Self-aware, secure people don't have to buy the right underarm spray or jog an assigned number of miles a day to gain social acceptance. The evolution of the drone, i.e. the ideal malleable consumer, began during World War II, when emergency made it necessary for women to work at men's jobs and take on men's roles in factories and on farms, while their husbands and sweethearts battled in Europe and the Pacific. With the economy in women's hands, marketing was altered to take advantage of feminine capriciousness and inherent insecurities. Women are better consumers than men, says LaVey, because of their inherent masochism. Freud said it long ago. That's one of the reasons he's looked on with such disfavor in our post-feminism age. Women do have a need for increased agitation, physical activity, and high energy output. I'm talking about bottom-of-the-clock women and bottom-of-the-clock men for that matter. Those physical types, what I call the pure feminine type, are inherently more insecure, and advertising plays on that insecurity. They're more malleable, they're more vulnerable. All these things are used in selling products, and it begins to feed on itself. When men returned home, the sales methods didn't change. The sexual inversion blossomed in 1955 when the first issue of Playboy hit the stands. What LaVey terms top-of-the-clock women, tall, big-breasted women with large shoulders and slim hips, were glorified, while Cupid doll cute girls were soundly criticized as fat. Men were encouraged, then, to act out the role of women by admiring top-of-the-clock, purely masculine women. Romantic idealism and the fun of prurience was smashed as the clinical, gynecological view of women began to predominate. The film noir period, with its loyal Coreans and gangster antiheroes, ended. Bright, splashy, colorful movies of clean, wholesome women in frilly dresses became the rage. Gone were the cheaply seductive waitresses who got anything they wanted by the use of subtle exhibitionism. Women became desexed and men demasculinized, with round-shouldered Madison Avenue men in gray flannel suits set up as the ideal. And then came the final flowering of the drone. Hippies, the final de-evolution of man, to LaVey's mind. Completely androgynous and convinced they were rebels against society, all 50 million of them, and so zonked out on drugs they could no longer think for themselves or question anything that was fed to them, while they were all convinced of their individuality and uniqueness. What better way to make people vulnerable to attack than to pump mind-blowing drugs into them? People in the 30s and 40s generally weren't as gullible. They weren't very sophisticated. They hadn't been exposed to a lot of things. Now everyone's sophisticated and smart. but much more gullible and naive than they were 40 years ago. LaVey sees that Christianity has contributed no small part to the current consumer dependence. If a religion teaches blind faith, blind belief in authority and ignorance, no one can think for themselves. Just as priests flogged themselves for their Lord, we are now taught no pain, no gain by those who sell athletic equipment. Same purpose, different sales pitch. There are only 3 characteristics rewarded in modern man: stupidity, irrationality, and irresponsibility. There are masochists, declares LaVey, unrealized, unrecognized masochists. They live on a binary system. Might as well be real machines. Love, die, hate, die, run, die. No shades of gray, no hues, no subtlety. Nothing but on, off, black, white, good, evil, act, die. They either have to kick, scratch, harass, goad, or die. Nothing in between. It's part of the death wish, the Calvinist ethic of holding back. Most people have a need to be punished. Then they win either way. If they're being assertive like all these books tell them to be and get what they want, then they win. If they get a punch in the nose, then they get what they want. Personal attention, pain, a feeling that they're alive. They play the odds. Say they push with 10 people and one of those people gives them what they're asking for. They're ahead. It's like the salesman. The sales start at the first no. There are just too many people for our system to support. It's as much a law as gravity or thermodynamics. The more people there are, the stupider they'll be, to a man. The most important thing an overcrowded society must encourage and provide is an inalienable right to stupidity, as in life, liberty, and the pursuit of stupidity. It's economically infeasible for it to be otherwise. After all, isn't that what happiness is all about? It used to be said that the only completely happy people were in the nut house. People we call suicidal aren't really aberrant. They're just voicing what's felt by most of society. They don't really want to live. They really want to die. It's too much work to live, to feel emotions fully, to be dedicated, to be loyal, to breathe, to reach further, fulfill your potential. It's just too much work. What they really want to do is kick around a little bit and then just roll over. Most people have to manufacture turmoil in their lives or have it manufactured for them. They go through life searching for distractions, escapes, to keep them from thinking about living. And an executioner to kill them. The weak see somebody that looks strong, successful, superior, and keep poking at him until he turns around and smashes them. Then, like the orgasm at the point of death, their ultimate goal is the ecstasy as their neck snaps. That's why you have to have parasites perish in ignominy, without being able to point and say, "Look, he's doing this to me." That's a masochist's dream. They want to be victimized so they can have the identity, the only identity of their existence, of being able to destroy the strong one with their accusations. I'm not that charitable. LaVey's unbridled misanthropy becomes frightening at times. I go one step beyond Carl Panzram's "I put them out of their misery" to "I make them feel something they wouldn't have ever felt otherwise." I stimulate them for the first time in their lives. Even in dying, they're living. They should suffer. I have to suffer for my awareness every single day. They wake up to a new world every morning. They don't have any demons or attackers facing them. It should be a balance factor. I have the philosophy that I have to do it. Why are they exempt? I couldn't get away with that. Satanists face a world every day where everyone tells them they're wrong, deluded. Why shouldn't stupid people be forced into little perspective too? As for the political machinery in America, LaVey has little positive to say, believing it's nothing more than a spectator sport presented to keep people occupied while the real moving and shaking goes on elsewhere. Most people don't want to pick a leader. They want to pick an executioner. So when they say elect a leader, they're really saying, I want you to pull the switch, not the other one. Now, says LaVey, there are too many Goteleiter zombies. Straw boss zombies in charge who are media slaves themselves, and more than willing to take from the deserving non-zombies that are left. The problem with society aimed at only growing more consumers is obvious. It drags the strong down and halts, even reverses evolution. Survival of the fittest is inverted because the weak are better consumers. Consequently, all the worst elements are preserved and protected. All the best elements are discouraged. Intelligence, resourcefulness, originality, curiosity. All the elements of the human brain that made us successful animals on this planet have been bred out of us. Are there ways for higher man to protect himself from encroaching masochistic consumerism and the stupidity it breeds? LaVey has suggestions, ranging from the ephemeral to quite practical solutions. In the old days, a gate, steel bars, guards were enough to protect yourself from invaders. Now there must be means of protection developed from legalistic, accredited thievery, which destroys the best individualistic elements. There must be a plan, a format, a guideline for protection. Now, attackers steal the rights of anyone with a mind, a force of will, a sense of individuality, just as they once stole stereos out of cars. Big business has developed tax shelters for everything. We must do the same thing, even stretching to abstract values. No one would guess that people would want to take what's in the mind, your memories, your feelings, your perceptions, but they do. They want to rob us of the most precious things we have. Satanists must utilize protective coloration and camouflage more than we ever have before. Anything coveted, real or abstract, must probably be protected in dummy corporations. One thing pod people might be unwittingly good for. We have to develop a straw boss system of competent, perceptive people so real leaders aren't forced to waste their time. That's another abstract commodity the zombies would like to deprive achievers of. Besides these precautions and protections for the higher man, LaVey proposes several means of effectively channeling people's masochism. As an example, he relates an early ceremony the Church of Satan performed called a strengthening ritual. LaVey selected an individual who represented that part of the world which must be hurt in order to be happy. Someone whose personality contained a bit of masochism at the heart of the devout Christians' guilt and sin complexes, but who rebelled against the kicking around he got because of his offbeat attitudes. Members scourged the person called the vessel of holy pain, who thereby absorbed their transgressions instead of ridding themselves of sins by self-flagellation, as in the Christian religion. LaVey proposes a variation of this idea for society in general. According to LaVey, we can be free of discord if we have the courage to discover our own natural predispositions without blindly buying, in more ways than one, everything we're told. First, we have to eliminate semantic traps: boss and secretary, sadist and masochist, master and slave. People shouldn't be afraid of using words that are supposed to connote weakness or subservience, explains LaVey. If the truth were known that the master is much more dependent on the slave than vice versa, and how could a boss get along without an efficient secretary? She's the only one who knows where everything is. We don't need to develop a new language, as feminists have tried to do. People only resent it and resist. The easiest and most effective way is to take what's given and redefine it. When one hears the word slave, the goal is to think of the truer aspects of facilitator, supporter. Master is a motivator, a provider, much like taking the term Satanist and seeing it in a positive light. It's the whole philosophy of Satanism, using a tabooed word or concept and using it to your advantage. There are advantages to being able to enjoy pain. The best businessmen have been a bit masochistic because they have to take incredible risks and not worry about it. An indulgent personality would defeat himself from the start because he would be too fearful of the pain of losing the entire investment. Many masochistic men are the most successful because they have learned to experience their predilections in a controlled, contained environment that won't be deleterious to their success. Masochists are more willing to take the chances and lose. They don't mind getting hurt. If a masochist wins, he wins. If he loses, he still wins. However, LaVey defines an important difference between self-destructive masochism and self-endowing masochism. These are two distinct aspects of a person, which mean the difference between failure and success. There are self-affirming masochists who want to exercise/exorcise their predispositions to gain in the world, and self-destructive masochists bent on self-defeat. In LaVey's cosmology, the difference between an inferior and a superior woman lies in whether or not she can clearly look and boldly at herself and use what she has to her best advantage. A self-aware masochist can be an extremely strong individual and a potent ally. To assist in this process of discovery and honest utilization of pain, LaVey proposes establishing clinics with attitudes like the Church of Satan, aimed at purging the guilt about enjoying pain rather than trying to cure anyone of masochistic tendencies. He even has ideas for machines devised to aid the therapy. He calls them autoerotic agitation tumblers. Big cylinders that vibrate and bounce with the woman thrown around inside. The machines would be the female equivalent of anatomically complete artificial human companions. They would be ideal female masturbation devices for women who would finally be able to shake themselves up to release their energy anytime they wished. If there was a forum properly presented, women would be taking charge of their own lives and they wouldn't be prey to fashions anymore. They'd be taking control of their masochism and using it. LaVey also suggests the American public exercise masochism on private as well as public levels. Mass interests, Christianity, TV, consumer society, exploit the individual need/instinct for love by placing them on a mass level. LaVey proposes a private pact between women and men to focus on the master/slave component of a successful relationship. Problems often crop up between couples because one person isn't dominating enough, fulfilling the role of master. LaVey asks, isn't it better to be able to choose your master rather than being forced to serve an impersonal one? There are too many mindless, useless people bred by our consumer society. Given the choice, isn't it better to be used than useless? LaVey sees that we are presently enmeshed in a consumerist-oriented invisible war, complete with technologically advanced chemical and electromagnetic weapons, crowd control, weather control, and misdirection to mask the entire operation. He claims there is no need for conspiracy theories, that private interests make such theorizing unnecessary. But the results far surpassed any conspiratorialist's worst nightmares of secret government agencies, CIA plots, UFOs, or MIBs. People don't understand there are different forms of weaponry, says LaVey, who has written extensively about the subject in recent Cloven Hooves. There can be food weapons, sonic or subsonic weapons, just as there are cannons, hand grenades, and submarines. How can people be so naive to think that warfare development would have stopped with nuclear weapons? The invisible wars measures/methods now being applied, thought control, diseases, pseudo-sickness, demoralization, etc., serve a twofold function: force stratification, and keep population thinned as a stopgap until space colonies can be perfected. Eventually, says LaVey, human drones will be sent into space. After stratification takes place and an underground of surviving sensitized people is established, space colonies will develop at an alarming rate, so good consumers will be shipped out to penal camps where they can spend lots of money and not destroy what's left of a beautiful planet. Space colonies are perfect, closed, controllable environments. All food has to be shipped and processed. All air, water can be treated with the proper substances and dispersed, with no wind or natural currents to worry about. People have been softened up for the upcoming space revolution for years. Movies, all the Star Wars, TV, Star Trek, books and cyberpunks and space rebels, cartoons, toys, politics between Russia and US finally stabilizing all point toward the same goal: space. The ones who willingly go into space will be the adventurous, the rebels, the oppressed who can't get justice on Earth, but who can finally be in the forefront of new developments of the fabulous uncharted regions above. There are plenty of jobs for everyone in construction, maintenance, service. All the comforts of home without the muss and bother. Only those weirdos attached to the past, i.e. Satanists, freethinkers, will want to stay behind. With no major industries left on Earth, those left will have to adjust to life with a minimal population. In the meantime, we'll design AETs and settle for masochism clinics. Perhaps they'll be called physical therapy centers or erotic agitation clinics. Rather than suppressing our needs or frenetically forcing someone else to smash us, we can go to a clinic, relieve our itch, then channel our creative energy into other, far more productive venues. Applying satanic perspective, masochists can be the slaves of their own, wisely chosen masters, rather than slaves to a desensitizing system.